Hi, everyone. Welcome to Smart's Fast Forward Edu Summit, where we're pulling together the best of the best in resources, lessons, pedagogical ideas, training, and more to make the ultimate blended learning mixtape. My name is Akia Shepard, and I'm a Smart Training Specialist from Florida. Our session, Everyday People, features Kimberly Ball, the Smart Manager of Global Professional Learning Community from Texas. And before we have Kim take over, let's run through a few housekeeping items. Depending on the device you're using to attend this webinar, you'll notice at either the top or the bottom of your screen, you have a menu bar with a few options for interacting with today's presentation. During the presentation, I'll be placing links and any additional information into the chat box. If you have any questions as we go along, please type those into the chat box, and I'll either throw them into the flow or hold them to the end for our Q&A portion. Additionally, participating in a total of 3 sessions will earn you a Blended Learning Rockstar badge. After the session, you'll receive an email with surveys for the sessions you've attended, and 3 will link you to your badge. So now I'll turn things over to Kim so that we can dive into our session, Everyday People.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to be with you today. I hope you've had a chance to grab some lunch and listen to the awesome keynote speech. I know there's a few times I had to check, make sure I didn't have mascara under my eyes before this session. It got me teared up. It really was powerful, and her message really ties into what we're going to talk about today, how to really set up a culturally responsive classroom and really build those relationships with purpose and meaning. And I thought she did a fabulous job. So I know all the sessions were recorded, so if you happen to miss it, make sure you get the recordings. Afterwards, we're going to follow up with an email. If you guys would, as we're getting started, Akia will pop this number into the chat, but if you would go to hellosmart.com and type in my class code 19541. This is going to allow you to really kind of feel what this looks like from a student perspective before we go into the how to create side. I'm really hoping today you leave here with some concrete tools, some things that are already made that you can use right away, and really kind of a consciousness of how do I set this up in my classroom, no matter what it might look like next year, because I know we have huge variety around the world of what back to school is going to look like from city to city, country to country. It looks very different. And so I think this is really important right now. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up. So if you missed this after I closed it, if you would just scroll up in the chat and grab it there. A quick introduction. My name is Kimberly Ball, as Akia said. I am the Global Professional Learning Community Manager for SMART. So I have the privilege of being able to connect with all of the amazing educators around the globe, our smart exemplary educators, our smart trainers, new teachers to our software, and really work with them and see how they're using it and what their needs are. Both Akia and I, our background is in education. We are passionate about the kids and the learning. We really focus on the student outcomes first. The technology, how does it enable? How can we save ourselves time? All of those things are really important. But the thing that matters most are those little people that are coming to our classroom, whether they're actual little people, or the kids that are a little bit taller than you that still are seeking, your expertise and sometimes your approval. So that's a little bit of both of us. Like I said, we come from the passion of the educator. So we really appreciate your time. We know how valuable it is. Quick note, make sure you are tweeting today. If you are on Twitter, there will be some prizes from hashtag Fast Forward Edu. So share, any ideas or connections that you have, questions that you have there. They'll be drawing some prizes. And follow me on Twitter. I love to stay connected and see what's happening and how things are doing. I do want to stop. And by the way, when you get these presentations, all of these are linked with songs. But my summertime jam is Don't Stop Believing by Journey. Akia, what's yours?
That's a good one. My summertime jam is actually a new song by Missy Elliott. If you guys want to dance, it's called Cool Off.
Nice. Well, you live in Florida, so that works.
Yeah.
It's not like it's hot here in Texas too. Well, we're going to dive right in. We have a good group here today, so please just, if you have a question, pop it in the chat. We don't have a massive number, so if you want to come off mute and ask a question, feel free to do that as well as we're going, so we can make this as interactive as possible. Sound good? All right, let's dive on in. So today is all about how do we encourage students to respect and enjoy the differences in others while really making a safe and inclusive environment. And I don't know about you, but every time I get on my phone and I get on Twitter or I watch the news right now, this globally is something that's a struggle. And this is not just a school issue. This is a society piece that we need to teach all people to do this, not just students. And how do we set up a space? And I felt like with distance learning, this became even more important to us. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take you to, real quick, I'm going to take you to a different page. You can go ahead and start this little quote here. But I really felt like during distance learning, it became so important to stay connected to people and to the students especially. And every kid's reality was so different. And as parents and educators, our realities were so different. Some of us had 5 kids at their table, all in different grades. Some had their grandkids at their table. Some students didn't have parent support. Some students were in charge of watching all of their other siblings. And all of those realities have to be accounted for now in these possible different scenarios that we're going back to school in. And how do we create equity and inclusivity as we work, with all these different kids that have come with such different backgrounds, which is what makes them amazing and unique, but it also can't be ignored. And I think sometimes we go very quickly to, if we just don't talk about it, everything will be okay. And I feel that now is the time more than ever that these conversations need to be had out front, that we need to point out differences and the value in those differences and highlight them in our classes, and the strengths and the weaknesses and the struggles, and let everybody feel they have a place. So I'm going to step off my soapbox now. Did anybody get the quote and want to come off mute after dragging it around? Akia does have a prize to give out at the end of today.
I do. Well, while we're waiting to see if anyone wants to come off mute, Kimberly, that story made me think of when I first started teaching. I was a TA, and the way that my teacher had the students introduce themselves to me was the most beautiful thing and very memorable. She had each student introduce the student next to them, and they told the student's name and their strengths. So each student in elementary school was able to identify their classmates and what they're great at and what their talents and what differences they have and how that brings value to the classroom.
Totally agree. So I'm going to finish this right here.
Someone did say great quote, though.
Okay, well, good. I love Stephen Covey's quotes, and I love how he really spotlights the student being a part of the process when you look at, the leader in me, the leader in all of us, right? Mm-hmm. And I really love this quote because if we don't start with trust and we don't build that glue right from the bat, these kids are going to come in, and whether they're sitting in front of you or sitting on the other end of the Zoom or Google Meet, you're going to have to build a relationship with them, and they know that they might be coming in with gaps. There's going to be significant holes from what we've just gone through. And so how do we build that trust right away to be able to get started? And the curriculum's important, the questioning, the tools, it's all important. But none of it matters if you don't start here, right? And we know that. This is why this relationship is why most of us got into education, right? We want to connect. We want to make a difference for those babies. And so I really liked how we really talk about the foundation and how do we set that foundation? And are there some tools that can help with that? And so I'm hoping today you have some new ideas and some fresh things that you can try. Everything you see today, you will get a copy of. So if you wanted to use this quote to talk about building trust in your classroom, you absolutely could, and you could augment it. And so you'll get everything at the end of today. So let's talk for a minute before we dive into some experiences. And for those of you who are new to Smart Learning Suite Online, notice as I turn the pages, your page on your screen is turning as well. So this is really great when, we're working with kids of different ages, our primary kids, to help them stay with you, help them stay focused. But I'm doing that by right here staying on teacher paced. And so if I click over here on the people, I can be right here in teacher paced, but I can also switch that to student paced. So if I want my students to be able to flip forward or go backwards at their own pace, they could do that. So I just wanted to point that out. So the one thing that I've heard the word blended learning being used a whole lot lately. I don't know about you, Akia. I'm sure like it's everywhere.
Yes.
And it seems to be that we're suddenly using the word blended learning to talk a lot more about location of people than about what's happening. And I don't know about you guys, but those of you who've been around for a while, this is not a new word. Blended learning is not a new goal. It's something a lot of teachers have been striving for a while. How do I take the best of the best of providing social emotional support, small group instruction, differentiation, sparking inquiry and investigation, building meaningful connections, scaffolding. It's like the video that Aaron showed of like, how do I keep all of this straight? Blooms, standards, testing. It's all these pieces. So how do we prioritize and use the best, most effective strategies, and what technology can amplify them, especially at a distance or in mixed grouping, as you have some kids in front of you and some kids not with you, or some kids that have significant gaps now. So keep all of these in the forefront of your mind and how that relationship impacts all of these different strategies. If your kids don't trust you and you provide differentiation opportunities, they're not going to take the risk of the challenge. If you're doing small group instruction and they don't have faith that you're there for them, they're not going to give their best piece. So again, we go back, it's the glue, it's the foundation. So just a kind of a quick frame of blended learning is a lot more about where you are than where you are. All right, so let's start with literally where you are in the world. So I'm going to do a collaborative workspace real quick and just get everybody's input. So if you have joined, I'm going to set this up real quick and I'm just going to put everybody together. And what I would like for you to do, you can see the directions right here. I would like for you to drag a tack for where in the world you are located, mark where you were born, and one place that you would love to visit. So I'm going to start with my visit. I'm dying to go here. Awesome. Look at this. And there's other ways we can do activities like this. You could have, of all the places you've been able to experience, which one impacted you the most if you're working with, older people. We also have the reality that we have a lot of students who maybe haven't, that they have the opposite. They have a very small world that they've been exposed to. And so maybe this is something you would want to do connected with another class to really say, hey, there's more out there. Or maybe it's more about what are you most curious about in the world versus where you've been, so that you can really kind of honor that. I remember I had students that I live in Texas. I was teaching in San Antonio most of the time, 2 hours and 45 minutes from the beach. And a lot of students who've never seen the ocean and they're in middle school, right? So things like that, those limited experiences, we want to make sure, that dreaded question of what'd you do for your summer vacation? Mm-hmm. Which I don't think will be popping up this year, but back to school. But it's not always a fair question. But if you would have just switched it, what do you wish you could have done on your summer vacation? If you could have gone on an adventure anywhere, what would you have done? You get the same value in connecting without embarrassing a student, right? So thank you for sharing this. And I just want to highlight how we did this. All we did was put the map down, get an image, and grab the tack and infinitely clone it. It's one of my favorite tools in Notebook, and it's now in Smart Learning Suite Online, which is what we're using today, our cloud-based software. And it's a really great way to quickly get a heat map on goals of how people are feeling, on a scale of 1 to 10. What is your sense of belonging in this class? And it's completely anonymous, and you get a quick beat on how your students are feeling or what their opinion is about something, because often they're not asked. And so it's just a great tool to quickly get some insight. So thank you for sharing. I see we have people all over. We have a lot of North American here today. We have people born all over though here. This is fascinating. So thank you for sharing that with us. So in addition to starting with where we're from, we know that really isn't what makes us, right? It shapes a few things for us. But what I would really like to capture is you think about yourself, and this is easy when we talk about it with our kids or our children. But when we ask ourselves, like, what is truly unique about me? What is the thing that you would want to share with people that's unique about you? And just for the sake of this, I am actually going to turn off display names so that you have the opportunity to really share anything that you would like to share in that comfort of security. This is one of my favorite tools when we talk about culturally responsive teaching, of not embarrassing or putting a child on the spot and giving every kid a voice, even that shy child that wants a voice but doesn't want to raise their hand. And then you have the ones that are like my daughter that just, I got the answer, I'll tell you, and so we got to make sure they all have a voice. I have 2 different color eyes. That's fascinating. Kind, that's great. What else? Let's see. We have a few more people coming in.
Kimberly, I'd like to add on with, I love the feature of being able to display the names on and off. Again, as you're building that trust with students, I've worked with older students, but I always find it amazing the things that my students were willing to write but not say. And you guys have to tell me if that's true, for younger students as well. But middle schoolers are a fun group. But there's so many things that they will express in a written form, and especially an anonymous written form that can be quite powerful, that they just aren't comfortable yet expressing verbally.
I totally agree with that. And I think it's interesting, when you have things like somebody is worried right now. And I think it's a very fair feeling right now that a lot of us feel. And that could be something very personal, or it could just be general, what's happening. But to give people that voice of check-ins, I can't, it's so important. And even the kids that are eager to share, they sometimes have a reputation for maybe being really smart, and they are terrified to share an answer that isn't right. So they just won't. But if you give them this security blanket, it will. And so a lot of people really some people shared some really personal things once we turned that off. And I'm not going to show you how I did it, but over here in the gear, I could say, like, whoever has the blue flower, it would match it with a name. So as the educator, I can still see who's sharing something. If they have a really big concern, a bullying situation, something like that, I, as the adult, would still have that insight.
A question did come up, Kimberly, and also just adding on to the symbol, how the symbol represents the student, even though, we don't know the name. It's also great in building connections. So you see that, this is a shared thought from one person. But someone asked, they teach middle schoolers, so they know what I was talking about with those kids. If an inappropriate statement came up, or maybe if, someone accidentally put a statement, how could you remove it?
And sometimes it's even as simple as somebody didn't understand the directions and they're embarrassed that the wrong thing is up, and you just want to take it down so it doesn't distract. So for example, I can take this one right here and I can very quickly, kind is a fabulous one. So I apologize for the person whose example I'm doing here. And I drop it, and notice how it kind of grays everything out. It asks me, am I sure? I click confirm, but nobody else's work was interrupted. This tool is meant to be run live. So I know some people are doing some asynchronous learning and some synchronous learning. And then, of course, we have our people that are going to be back in class in some capacity. So this is meant to be run with students live. So whether you're in a Zoom meeting, a Google meeting, in a classroom, you're doing this live, so you can monitor it. And the other question that comes up a lot is that I want to capture this, and maybe I want to share this out on my blog, or this is going to be a pre-writing, and they're each going to pick one thing and they're going to pretend that that's what's unique about them and write from that perspective to get some perspective of walking a mile in somebody else's shoes, so to speak. What I would do to do that is I would just very quickly grab a screen grab of it, and I can go in my editing mode, put it on a blank page and add this in. So we can capture it. I know on your screens you can just see the box where you can submit, but we still can capture this, and the students can refer back. If they come back in, for me, if I close this lesson and come back in, all of the responses will still be here. So it does save it. I haven't showered in a week. I did this morning because we had to turn videos on. That was great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for some of you who opened up, because I really think once you can start to see your students doing that, sharing things with you, it's really important. And I think with distance learning, that's the other thing that we need to be careful of when we talk about culturally responsive is I know, like even in our meetings, like Kia and I, when we meet, we turn our cameras on so we can personally connect to each other. But I'm sitting in a nice little office and it's a good workspace and I'm not embarrassed by it. But there are children out there that might have embarrassing situations that are their background. And is it fair to require them to turn their cameras on, to expose that to their peers? And so making sure we have tools in place to give them that safety and that conscious of thought of, it's important that I can see them and that I can tell that they're engaged, but is that more important than their sense of belonging? Like weighing some of those things and maybe having some personal conversations. So just some things to keep in mind in this new landscape, so to speak. But we are all unique. And I think once we look at what we're each unique in and how can we bring that as a meaningful part of instruction. So when I saw somebody on there was an opera singer, like what an amazing thing that you could bring into a classroom, right? And even if you don't want to sing in front of everybody, maybe you could just write something that goes with it or things like that to just leverage that talent and interest with purpose and instruction. And so once you know those things about your students, you can do really meaningful things. The next activity, again, I'm showing you a few examples of what this can look like with our tool, and then I will go and show you how to actually create and build some of these tools. So just kind of bear with me in the student view. What we've done so far is we've done a workspace where we're all in together moving the tasks. We've done a shout it out where we can all share what our opinions, our thoughts, brainstorming. And now what we're going to do is a student handout. And this is exactly what it sounds like. Each student getting their own handout. So this is where I can go in and check on each student and see how they're doing interacting. I can interact on their space with them, whether they're with me live or whether they logged in and worked on this last night and I am now logging in to provide them feedback the next day. So I really like this. I like that I can have small group rotations around my classroom working on this, and I can check in with them when, between my small groups and things like that. And so what we did here on this one, I'm going to open my teacher activity, is we asked you guys some questions here about your learning profile, about what you think. And I'm going to ask that you don't, and I would do this with my students, maybe say, look, don't put your name on it yet, because we're going to share a few of these, and talk about it in class about what that type of person might look for in a friend or somebody they're working on a group project with. So I would ask them actually not to put their name on it. Now, that being said, I can still see everybody's name. So I would just freeze my screen real quick while I switch back and forth between students if I wanted to keep it a secret. Is there somebody who wouldn't mind that's maybe marked on theirs? If you could check that done box and let me kind of take a peek. All right, thank you, Debbie. So Debbie right here, she's put in a few notes. Let me see if I can get there we go. Get that back over there. Put in a few notes about that they're always loves to ask questions, try to understand others, honest and upstanding, knowledge seeker. I think about how to do better. So these are really great skills. So with students, I would say, hey, what would you want this person to do if you were working in a group? What would maybe a responsibility be that you would want to give this person to help your group? And then I think that's really important to think about the struggle, right? So one thing that, that maybe I struggle with is balance, is know how to balance things. I have twin 7-year-olds, and that's a lot. And so throughout their whole childhood and the learners and things, like balance is something that I personally struggle with. So that's something I think about it all the time. I don't execute it as well as I'd like to. So I could mark that red and say, okay, maybe that's not the timekeeper job. Maybe that's a different job. And so I think it's important to know how our students see themselves. It would also be interesting to have them do this and then have their parents come in a different color and say, how do they see their, or not just a parent, a guardian, any influential adult that they're with, a sibling, how do you see me as how do I make myself known to the world, which is different than how we see ourselves, and helping students see that there's a difference there, I think is really important. So again, this is a handout, and you were able to go over here with the pins and just pick whatever pen. And I, as the teacher, I could put a little note right here. I could get the text, so I could click right here and ask a question of what is the hardest on this list? And that gives that personal question. I didn't ask it to everybody. I just asked Debbie. So again, personalized feedback is another really great way. I might know Debbie is really shy. And so I might say, hey, one thing that, what's one way you could challenge yourself to grow there in this next week, just between you and me. And then I could help that student along the way. Say, hey, I remember your challenge was that you were going to participate more in groups of conversations. Today, I'm going to ask this question. Think about it and be ready. Preparing students in that way. All right, so we have lots more that kind of finished a few things. So look, we have a lot more, kind of that middle orange. Like, I see a few strengths, and nothing on here I rarely do, but things that are a little bit more than I'm sometimes that way. So I think this is very telling, and allowing students to think and have that metacognition is just really important. And it really helps us know when we do learner profiles, and there's a million different ones you can get. And the great thing about Smart Learning Suite Online is I can find one online on Teachers Pay Teachers on Pinterest. I can upload it, add some infinite cloners, add a direction. And then from there, I have something interactive. It's not just a digital worksheet. It becomes something that they touch and that they think about, and, a little bit more connected experience. And the two-way communication is invaluable. All right. So thank you guys again for participating with that. All right. So I want to show you three more examples very quickly, and then we are going to flip over to really talk about ways that we can build these tools and play with it. So I'm going to ask you to be a button pusher with me today. We're going to get on and we're going to push some buttons and try some new features. But I want to give you a few more examples, and I'm trying to hit some age ranges from secondary down to our little ones, because this conversation needs to start happening way earlier than it has in the past. Of there's a place for everybody, and you're included in this class, and you're valuable. And it needs to be directly said, because we're hearing more and more that young students are struggling with depression and big weights on their shoulder, and we need to be able to ask and find out why way earlier on. So in these first tools, it was very personal. I'm asking like their opinion. I'm getting to know them. I'm working on that foundational relationship that I can build. The other arm of being a culturally responsive teacher is acknowledging different knowledge levels, different vocabulary usage, different language experience and comfort levels. And so I'm going to flip over a little bit more to the curriculum and instructional side of how do we bring in some of these tools. And I want to take you to this next activity, and I'm going to show you how I would do this with the students in class. So this is pretty much a blank page. It has one word in the middle, and that's it. And I think sometimes as teachers, we spend so much time making something and building something, and this blank page is really powerful, and it really gives everybody space to interpret their own meaning. And I think that adds a lot of value. So sometimes that simpler work frame can allow more room for interpretation of what it looks like. And so I'm going to take this one and I'm going to make it a collaborative workspace. And we have a good group of people here. So if I was live and in class, I would click on my little people over here, because I want to talk about how my students access the content. And instead of making this an individual handout, I'm going to make it a collaborative workspace. And I'm going to pitch you guys into some groups. And I'm going to make sure, if I was an educator, that my groups would have different levels, that they would have different interests, but they would also mesh well together. I'm not going to put my highest learner with my learner that struggles the most, because they're going to get frustrated with each other, right? I'm going to think about how the balance is, challenge them. The kid that said, I'll never forget, I had a little boy tell me, I don't do group work on the first day of class. I was like, okay. So we had to really scaffold. I had to really work on his trust to get him to do that. But I had to respect it right off the bat, because if I would have forced him right into group work, I would have broken that foundational trust. And so at the same time, that wasn't going to fly that he didn't do group work in my class. So we had to work on that. But from here in my teams, I could say, okay, Jessica, I really think Jessica would be better down in this group. I don't want to put her in this group because there's already another Jessica. And I can rearrange my students as I see fit very quickly. And then I can click Start the Workspace. And so what we're going to do in this activity is, when we're talking about vocabulary, when you see power, what I'd like for you to do is type or find pictures that go with the word power, that are a subcategory of power, that define power. Any single word that is connected to the word power. You can do it in pictures or in text. So if you would work with your team for just a moment, I'm going to pop in and out of a few. And Akia, while they're doing that, has there been any questions that come up while they're working here for a second?
Yes, there's actually, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You would think I was talking this whole time. There was a great question about how students return to the handouts if, after you're presenting this, they like to add more or continue the conversation. So how can students return to the handout after the presentation?
That is a great question. So right now I have this on teacher pace. So if I turn the page, it's going to snap all of you out of your worksheet and you're going to come to that next page with me. But if I were to turn it onto student pace, you would be able to go in and out, like go reference other slides and come back to this slide to keep working. So if you had informational, work that you wanted them to go back and reference and come back to this, they could do that. Now, let's say I worked on this in class. I introduced this in a Google Meet. This is their assignment, but they're going to go work on it in their groups independently. What I would do is I would get a student share link, and I'll show you in just a moment, but I'm going to go back to my suite.smarttech dashboard, and I'm going to get a student share link, and I can place that link in Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, my newsletter, whatever I use as my platform, Teams, for my students to be able to access after the class. And any work that they've done, they'll just be brought right back in. The only thing is they do need to log in with their Google or Microsoft in order to re-access that. So in just a moment, when we flip out, I will show you guys that so you can see it. That's a great question. All right, let's check on team number 4. So look right here, we have power, we have strong, energy, and we have like superhero. So we could then, after we do this, I could ask the students, okay, now I want you to make this into a web, and I want you to create categories and branch off subcategories from here. So I took their information, their schema, their connections, and I am asking them to build from there versus me saying, let's talk about power in literature, power in society, power in science. Instead of giving them the categories and having them just brainstorm, I'm asking them from your personal experience and your knowledge. When you see this word, what connections do you make? And then as a group, like they might think, oh, I didn't think about a superhero. There's other things. So, they could branch off, superpowers and different things. And energy, there's so many things that would come off of here and really organize this. And all I had to do was give them a word and a blank page. So when I talk about low prep, high impact, this is something that can really help. And if I have a group that's struggling, I could always go in. This group is not struggling. They're doing great because these are connected. I could go in and propose a challenge questions like, can you come up with an analogy for power? Because they seem to be doing really well. Can you find an example in another culture or something an example of power that you disagree with? And start to get those examples of good power versus power that creates struggle in society. And so we could level this up. And if I have a group that's just struggling with words, I could say, okay, let's start with the dictionary. Let's define it. And I could scaffold that learning up for them. So each group would get the exact feedback they need without me having to personally walk around to every group or have individual Zoom calls with each group. So I love this blank page, just a word in the middle, and a collaborative workspace using text. If they have touchscreen, they can draw, they can upload pictures, they can really make this meaningful and continue to grow. I've seen teachers do this as they're reading a novel and make new connections of whatever the central theme is, the word that they put in the middle. And as anything connects to that theme, they map it. And then because it's digital and not on paper, you can move it and organize it as the story unfolds, which I think is really powerful as a way to just track that visual thinking. And think about, for my student who is a English as a second language learner, how visually impactful is this? This is way better than me explaining in the front of the room what power is or showing a YouTube video. It's going to resonate. One of these groups are going to resonate. So again, when we think about culturally responsive teachers and scaffolding and gathering prior knowledge and connecting it, that's what our role is, right? And to make it personal so that they can learn and thrive and feel that they have a place. Like, I think a blank page, there's just nothing better. And so I know it seems so simple, but it's one of my favorite tools. And the beautiful thing in Smart Learning Suite, let's say I have this great YouTube, I have this great thing, and all of a sudden I have this idea, I remembered this session, I was like, I want to do one of those semantic maps. I could, on the fly, add a blank page. I'm sorry, it just kicked you out if some of you are working because it's still on teacher pace. I'm going to add my blank page. I click up here on the people. I make it a collaborative workspace. And right there, I can say, and then I can even say, group 2, you're going to do this word. Group 4, you're going to do this word. Group 3, you're going to do this word. And I can start the workspace. And just like that, on the fly, I was able to put my students in meaningful groups, give them a differentiated assignment, and all I had to do was push 2 buttons. So it really is a simple tool, but it's not to be understated. All right. There actually is a session later today called The Power of a Blank Page. It's one of my favorite ones. So with that being said, I'm not going to actually make this one a handout, but I'm really excited to tell you that coming very soon in our Smart Learning Suite Online ready-made templates is a lot of graphic organizers are coming, and the Frayer model is one of them. And it looks a little different than this one, but this is just a great way to make thinking visual again, supporting our language learners, supporting and scaffolding and making connections. I love using examples and non-examples, whether it's in a super sort, in a graphic organizer. It really helps them kind of sort that information in their brain and figure out how to identify different groups of things. And so this is a very powerful tool, and I'm really excited. I'll show you here in just a moment where it goes. The last tool that I'm going to show you, we have a few other examples in here that we're going to do together later, but I'm going to skip down here to 14. Because one of the most important parts in my mind to get a student to buy into being in your classroom and owning their learning is choice. And I know right now there's a session going on of voice and choice in the classroom. And when a student has choice of, I know that I'm an excellent artist, I think in pictures, but if you ask me to write an essay, it's a big struggle. But your question is, do I understand the water cycle? Okay, so maybe I need to do it in pictures then, because the objective is understanding the water cycle. It's not writing an essay about the water cycle. It's not drawing a picture of the water cycle. Mm-hmm. It's, do I understand the water cycle? So let's give some choice in our product. And so I love using this flip out of creating a choice board where students say, pick any 3, something you're comfortable with, something you feel you're going to be successful with. I've done it where 2 that you're comfortable with, 1 challenge, and I want you to put a star next to your challenge word. And so again, this is something that they can do. You can have this work digitally. They can do it in Google. They can do it on a piece of paper. They can do it in a spiral. They can do it in a small group at their desk. Not all the work needs to be digital for the digital tools to be impactful. So don't be afraid to just, everybody get out a piece of paper. You can, or let the students pick. You want to open up a PowerPoint, a Google slide, you want to make a Powtoon, you want a blank page in Smart Learning Suite Online, whatever it is, I just need you to create a Frayer model of your work.
Kim, I'm going to hop in really quickly, just so that everyone knows. If you're following along, if you're looking at Kim's screen on Zoom, you'll see this. If you're in Smart Learning Suite Online, she's on page 14. But we are actually still in student pacing, so Ben, exactly where you're describing the slide.
I am so sorry. I forgot that I had flipped it over to student pace.
No problem. Andrea, let us know in the chat.
Thank you so much. Because it is, and so you can see why, but notice how right away, as soon as maybe I was explaining to a different group and letting some others finish up some work and I'm going ahead, but the second I pick back on teacher's page, you're right here with me. So I apologize for those who weren't just visually picturing it.
No problem. But I also do just love the way that you can give students that freedom with student pacing and then pull them back when you need to. So I love that you're able to toggle back and forth so quickly.
It is. It makes it's a really nice classroom management, and I've noticed it being leveraged heavily in distance learning. Okay, so with that being said, we've talked a lot about using a blank page, using the workspaces and handouts. We've used this flip out card to provide choice. The other example that I just love is this rank order. And when I originally saw the rank order, I was like, okay, we can smallest to largest, ABC order, first to last, right? Well, then it occurred to me that rank order has this amazing feature that I can turn off whether it checks whether it's right or wrong. And now I can ask my students' opinion about things. So for you guys, when you're thinking about setting up a culturally responsive classroom and learning environment, knowing your ecosystem of students and their needs and their unique, challenges that each school has, right? what is most important to least important, and just kind of organize this for yourself to just kind of frame, as you're thinking about using some of these tools, whatever you put in the most important, let's see if we can create something that will impact that. So if I was to think about my own personal students and what I look for as a parent in a classroom right now, we have big thunder happening here. So if my internet gets a little wonky, we have a big storm coming in. For me, it's really important that they feel welcome every day and that they want to go to school. There's no right or wrong answers. I want them to belong. Parents, actually, I'm going to move that down. I'm not as important. And then my kids' names are William and Kennedy. It's pretty easy. So that one's not one that hits them often. So, I can quickly organize my thinking, and I can say, okay, greeting students, that setting that foundation for the day is really important to me. And that's important for me as a parent and my students' experience. So when I go to push buttons here in a minute and make something, I want to make something that's going to help me interact with my students when we're starting class, whether it's in person, at a distance, when they're starting their homework, whatever it is. I want to set that tone. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. So whatever it is you have that's at the top of for your most important, kind of keep that in mind. And we'll flip over here and let's get into how we make these tools and how quick we can really make them impactful. Sound good? Anything before I hop out of teacher mode?
I actually have an idea over here that I'm still reviewing of how they've used rank order.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow. So we have someone explain that they use rank order to rank the importance of water resources. So they had screenshots, so they used images in their rank order, and they were able to, on the next page, type out an explanation. So I'd call those rank and defends, and I love them. So you can use it, to talk about your culture in your classroom, but also you could tie it within your content. I've seen ones with, literature where they're ranking the most influential characters.
Absolutely.
That's
History,
a great idea.
Right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I think it would be, especially when we look at history, finding something that's a parallel event to things that are happening in current days and thinking about what's most influential to least influential, how should that shape how we make choices in the present, and bridging that gap. It's a really concrete tool. And I love this tool for that. I use rank order all the time. So that's a fabulous idea. Whoever that was, my friend from Laredo, maybe. All right, so what we're going to do now is up here in the left-hand corner, if you are a Google user, you might have the 3 hamburgers if you are used to going in through Google to do Smart Learning Suite online. And I'm going to show you the difference here in just a minute. If not, right where my house is, you have a door. So if you would click on that door, that will take you out of my class, okay? So from here, I'm going to go ahead and close this lesson, and I'm going to go to my dashboard. So this is my Smart Learning Suite online dashboard. And for me, there's 2 ways that we can get to this place. So for those of you who are Google users and know that your district has Google integration, or you think that they might, I would like for you to come on a quick field trip with me. We're going to go check it out. And if you know you are a Microsoft user and you get to this tool by going to suite.smarttech.com, stay here, put in the chat with Akia here for a minute, maybe share your summertime jam or really great ideas that you would use with rank order, just any kind of brainstorming while we just quickly talk over here about Google login, because I want to make sure that is clear. So if I am a Google user, what I will do, let me get a new tab here. Boop, boop, boop. I don't like it when that's in my way. Here we go. There we go. All right. If I'm a Google user, I'm going to go into my Google Drive. You will notice I am logged in with my work account. So for you guys, it would be your school account that you would be logged in with. And to test to see if Google and Smart has been linked up for you guys, what you're going to do is click right here on New, More, And you'll see down here, Smart Learning Suite Online. And if you select that, if it's the first time you've ever logged into Smart Learning Suite Online, it's going to ask you to, what's your class, what's your name, what do your students call you, and just log in with Google or this one will be with Google. And it'll take you right into a creation place. So if you do not have this, if in your drive you click on More and you click on Smart Learning Suite, it might just mean that your district, either one isn't using Google and Smart integration together. If you have a current notebook license, this is included. There's no additional cost for Smart Learning Suite Online. And we do have support materials that can show your district admin how to flip that switch to connect your Google Drive. What is great about this is this allows me to take my Google slideshows and put them into Smart Learning Suite Online and add those rank order shouted out, make a Google slide page, a workspace, or a handout. So I can use the materials I already have and tweak it. So that's one reason why Google integration is really great. So that's one way to get in. Okay.
Before we go to the second way, so sorry, Kim. We have one question about the Google way that I think you can answer about is there a limit in Google Drive to how many lessons you can build?
It would be the same as whatever your Google Drive limitations are, because it's being stored in there. So you're good on that. I will say that I have found it doesn't love like 100 Google. I mean, I personally, we talk also about like, is it really best to have a lesson that's 100 pages long, right?
Right.
Maybe we could chunk that up and make it biteable for our students. And so, but normal file size have absolutely no trouble.
Right. So you should be able to store plenty in your Google Drive and organize it however
Absolutely. And I can find all of my lessons that I've done in Google Drive by just doing .sls. And that will find them so you can see. I have a Lego task board. And so if I wanted to use this Lego task board with my students and I wanted to share this with them, I'm in Google. What am I going to do? Just right click and I can share, right? Or get that shareable link and post in Classroom or what. I can also attach it directly in my Google Classroom from my Google Drive. So lots of big wins there if you're a Google user. Now, for the rest of us that if we are not a Google user, oops. Here we go. Sorry about that. I accidentally closed it. If you are not a Google user, you will go in by going to suite.smarttech.com. Suite, and maybe you could put that in the chat. If for any reason it's not like your screen doesn't look like mine with this big green box and the training button, you might check and make sure you're not still logged in as a student. You might just have to click sign out or scroll down and say, I am a teacher. So if you need any help with that, you can put that in the chat. So from here, let's say, whether I went in through Google or I went in here, once I click on that Smart Learning Suite on Google, or if I click on the plus sign here, I end up on the same screen, the exact same screen. So from here on out, the experience is the same. And I want to start with, maybe I want to start with a Google slide. Maybe I want to start with a PDF that I have, and I want to make that interactive, and then I'm going to add things to it. So right here, notice I can do a notebook file, a PowerPoint, or a PDF. If I was in Google, it would also have the choice of a Google slide. So that's one reason why you want to ask your admin to do it if you are a Google user, to turn it on. So I'm going to go ahead and import a resource right here. We're going to start with something. I don't know about you guys, but I love Wonderopolis. It's a great resource for nonfiction reading. To my own personal child really enjoys it because it has that curiosity, sparking that curiosity. And so what we did here is we actually took a piece of text from Wonderopolis about graphic novels. And so this is a really interesting one because when we think about literature and what meets certain students' needs and captures their interest, what's that quote? If you don't like reading, you just haven't found the right book yet, right? Something like that. I don't know who said it. And so graphic novels really did kind of shift the culture of, of what's considered a novel. And so I think this is actually kind of a neat discussion point for the students as well, and capturing on their opinions. So let's say one thing I want them to do is to be able to go in and annotate this. Maybe we're studying facts and opinion, and I want them to be able to identify that. And so I would maybe want to do, let's do a quick image search for facts. See if I can find something quick here. So here we go. We'll do this, facts. So if it's a fact, they're going to put that on it. Okay, and then I'm going to add one more picture. If I have a question, I will put, let's just get the plain question mark. And let's say last thing, because this is really important, is if I have a connection that I see, a personal connection to this. So click search. We'll use this one. I like that one. Okay. So now I've added these 3 things. Very easy. I took my PDF, I uploaded it, whatever. It could have been a PowerPoint, it could have been anything. And now I've added these 3 things because what I want my students to do is go through, look for the big ideas, underline main ideas, and then identify facts, any questions that they have, and make some personal connections. Okay. So I don't want them to have to put fact on here like 10 times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little down arrow, and I'm going to infinitely clone it. This makes it now where I have unlimited facts that I can just pull out at any point. I'm going to delete this one so it stays pretty. And I'm going to do it with each of my tools here. I'm going to make these infinitely cloned so that they can quickly grab and identify different parts. I don't know if anybody here uses depth and complexity. The depth and complexity icons would be fabulous in this to quickly drag and identify ethical issues, multiple perspectives. If you have not seen that tool, it's worth a Google search, depth and complexity tools. And I've used it in kindergarten through 8th grade. And it goes all the way to high school for certain. So great little sidebar. So I've done this. I want this for my students to each have their own copy. They're going to do this for homework, and we're going to start a graphic novel in class the next day. So what do I need to do to make this where they can interact? Because right now it is view only. They can only see what I see. So maybe I want to do an example with them, and that would be fine. But otherwise, I want them to do the touching and the learning. So I'm going to convert this to an activity. And I have 2 choices. The handout, which means one-on-one. Each student gets their own. Or I have the workspaces where we put them in collaborative groups, or I can have everybody in my class on the same one. Maybe we're going to read this out loud together. And as we're reading, they can collectively do it and identify connections and facts. And when we get to the end of the paragraph, I can say, I'd love to hear some of the connections that you made. I see there's 3 connections here. Who would like to share? So we don't interrupt the flow of the reading. So 2 different ways to do it. For today, I'm going to make it a handout. And I love that I can do right here. I can change this. This is kind of a hidden thing I think a lot of people don't know about. But I like to put a probing question or a quote here to just get them thinking. And so this one said, the title is our graphic novels. Oh. All right. Now, let's say I want to add something here. And I'm going to very quickly click on this plus sign, and I want to maybe do questioning and reflection. Let me see. And I want to say, do you agree or disagree? And I'm going to say graphic novels are not novels. And I'm going to ask them, do they agree or disagree? This is ready-made, and I can put this up here before so I can get their opinion, right? And so instead of here, do you agree or disagree, I could actually add to this, or I could change it to graphic novels are not. And I do not think that, just to be clear. And so there we go. And now I have my the PDF that I changed into a handout for each student. And I can also add YouTube video. This is fabulous, especially when we talk about making the world a bigger place for our students, the ones that have limited experiences. How can I take them to the ocean so they can see it, the students who haven't, and create a leveled playing field for the ones that have traveled and been outside of the world? How can I bring in the feeling of a different culture into the classroom that they haven't personally experienced? Things like that. And YouTube's a great tool. My favorite thing about YouTube, Akia, what is it?
Free.
It's free. And there's you said ad free, right?
Right.
Yeah, ad free, no advertisements. And when it plays, it just plays in your Smart Learning Suite online window.
Yes.
It doesn't take them out into YouTube, because I'm telling you, my 2nd grader gets on YouTube for a second and he is on Dude Perfect. I don't know how he does it.
We like to call it distraction free because,
yes.
Right.
Distraction free. I love it. So it's just really a key way that you can make a big impact for your class and bring in those different cultures and different experiences and make it seem like they've experienced. And so those are here. That shouted out activity that we did is right here. So I want to add that. And I want to, I'm going to do randomize, and I'm going to say, if you could make any book or novel and have it be made into a graphic novel, what would you want? And so that's going to be my question. So I'm going to be finish. And then we'll put right here, what book should be made to a graphic novel? All right. So now I have quick 3 different things for them to do. Maybe I want to do 1 exit ticket before they leave. After we do all of these things, I'm going to do 3 facts, 2 questions, and 1 big idea. This is, like I said, already ready-made for me. I didn't have to do anything. It's ready to go. It's already going to be made into a handout, so they can already access this. And we're really excited because coming very soon, hopefully before back to school, graphic organizers are coming, like I talked about, the Freyr model, Venn diagrams, T-charts, all the goodies that you can think of. So many cool things that are coming that'll be ready-made for you to pop in and can quickly do that visual thinking. So again, one last thing I want to show is that rank order, because I really think that that's valuable for opinions, right? So if I click on this plus, here are those game-based activities. And just if we think about the general gamer culture that we have in a lot of our students, letting them play some games while learning is really worth our time. This one is not really a game, it's more of an interactivity, but you can do games like Monster Quiz is a lot of fun as far as a trivia quiz. So right here, I'm going to click on my rank order. And this I can do, let's do most important to least important. And I'm going to talk about what they look for in a book. They look for suspense. They look for friendship. They look for challenge or struggle, right? They look for funny. You know, what's most important to least important? Strong characters like me, different things like that. The most important thing that you're going to see is right here, check answers. We want this to be don't check, because for me, what's most important in a book is strong characters. That really is my number 1, followed by challenges. Akia, what's most important to you in books?
I would say the characters. The characters, fall in love with those characters is just going to keep me reading.
Absolutely. And I seem to like a mystery more than I like funny. I stick with it more. But anyways, so again, the titles go here, and you can completely customize them, you know, to my strengths and my weaknesses, or strongest to least, you know, any way you want to do it. And then you click next. You can pick your background. This is a good time to talk about the different volumes, especially if you are in class. You can make an inference to what a rock concert sounds like. This activity is not quiet. The garden is lovely and quiet. The pirates have nice, just peaceful music. So does the ocean. The monsters have fun music. And there's a blank background too, if you want to keep it a little more serious. So that's a choice. So I just click finish. So right here, how do graphic novels change the world? I have a get kind of my hook. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Getting a good debate going. We're going to read about graphic novels. We're going to annotate on it. We're going to drag and drop using those infinitely cloned, right? We're going to do a shout it out about what book they think should be made into a graphic novel. And then we're going to do an exit quiz of 3, 2, 1, 3 facts, 2 opinions, and what was the other one? 1 big idea. There it is. And then after that, they have a little extra item where they can do, because this is where we're going to start off tomorrow. We're going to talk about how we select books and what biases we have in selecting authors and genres. So that's going to be my kind of kickoff to the next day. So my lesson is completely done. I'm going to click finish editing. Okay. Any big questions on that? Again, everything here was just clicking on that plus and uploading and then building from there. Pretty quick, right? Any questions popping up that we need to stop for before I show how to give this back to the students?
No, I think we're good.
Perfect. Okay. So now I'm going to click finish editing, and I want to take a moment. I have an incognito screen open over here. So let me do this. Can you guys see both of my screens, or only Smart Learning Suite Online still?
We can see both.
Okay, perfect. So I am going to kind of show you what this looks like side by side, just in case a few of you haven't been able to join with me on your device and have it, if you're watching on your phone. I just want to make sure everybody can see this. So I have here my how to do graphic novels, and I am going to, if I want to do this live in class, I can just push start, and my students can join by going to hellosmart.com and entering my class ID. Okay. From my student view, they have two choices. They can sign in or they can join as a guest. So let's talk about this for a quick second. If I'm doing something in class, I'm doing it live, join as a guest is fine. They're going to join with this class code. They're going to do the activities. They don't need to revisit it. It's just for right then learning. We're good. However, if I want my students to continue their work at home, if I want to be able to reopen this, and have everybody, different handouts attached to different names, I do want them to sign in using their Google and Microsoft. So that is a key to one of the differences. If you're just running in class, you could just join as a guest. Some kindergarten teachers do this when they're just getting used to it, or primary grades, and then they flip over after they get their kids logging into Google. Even our littlest ones can do this, whether you're signing in or not. We just have to get them there, help them, again, give them a lot of credit. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click, so that is one way that I can share. So if I click sign in and I click sign in with Google, I am going to sign in with my son's account. That sounds good. Oop, maybe not. I'll just do it with cable. All right, I'm going to click next. It might, no, I think I'm a teacher on this account too. Oh, authentication. Hold on. That's what happens when you use our incognito. All right, we're good. I've authenticated. I'm safe. Okay, so once this happens, once I join, I'm going to say join a new class. And this is where I'm going to enter that code, 19541. Now, what's great is once your students join your class once, it's going to remember your code. So when they log back in, it's going to have a list of any teacher's codes that they've used. They can just join. This isn't like Kahoot that it changes every time. So you can print this out, hang it in your classroom, put it in your notes in Zoom. You'll memorize it. So once I click join, now you can see this is my teacher view, and this is my student view over here. Okay, so when I click start for class here, notice what happens over here. It's asking me, so I would ask my students, do you think graphic novels are not novels? And so each student would get to pick. And so I can see as a teacher how we're doing. I'm getting everybody to do it. I can even see the live results. Most people have said, no, don't agree with that, right? And so once I'm done, I click this arrow, and I love this, that it asks me, are you sure that you want to submit? Because we all know we have those kids, especially if I want to take a grade. This one doesn't have a right or wrong. This is opinion. But in response, I can get data. And I would are you sure these are the answers you wanted to submit? And so they have to say yes. Okay. And so that comes, it says, great job. I can even view this as a pie chart for myself as an educator. So I like that you can see the two different views. Now, because I'm on teacher paste, what's going to happen when I click on this arrow to go to the next page? It's going to go on the next page over here. Right? So for my students, they click start. They will be able to go in, and I'm an individual student. I will say, do you have a favorite type of book? They love pop-up books. I can say, oh, connection. I still have the pop-up books from when I was little, right? Question, what are graphic novels? I've really never seen one. So that's actually something I'm wondering about, right? And so I'd go through and I'd start to mark all these different things, and I can highlight in here and go through and just really work on this text together. Now, as the teacher, what's great about this is I can see Debbie is on it today, man. Debbie has already gone through. She thinks she's done. Debbie needs to do a little bit more work, but thanks, Debbie, for checking the box so I can show what that looks like. And I could leave her feedback right here. I could say, can you look again? Can you look again? Start with 3 connections. So I can give her something a little bit more concrete to get started with, right? And then I can go back out and I can see How did Kim do? I could say, okay, she still needs to keep working too, and I can leave her feedback. Or maybe I want to send them to a link. Okay, can you compare and contrast this? You need an extension, things like that. So again, I can really respect different interests, different levels. So for example, if I know Debbie has read, is a big comic book fan, I could ask for a connection, compare and contrast a Venn diagram of comics and graphic novels and see what they come up with. And so again, different extensions that I can do. The way that if I click done right here, notice how the check mark comes right here. And I always tell my students that does not mean I'm done. It just means I'm ready for my first round of feedback, right? Because we want our kids to keep on growing and learning. So again, I can go through, here's the shouted out. Again, this is meant to be run live. So when I click start for class, their screen goes to this, okay? I can even, this is one of my favorite tools right here in the star. I can randomly pick a number here, and I could say I have, let's say, hopefully you don't have 22 kids in your class, let's go, or 32. I can click right here and say, okay, whoever my 10th response is, or you're going to explain your thinking, or number 10 if you have your students have numbers to help organize, things like that. So it's just a fun way to keep on working. All right, so that is a little bit of the gist of what it looks like in each screen. Does that make sense? Are there any questions that are coming up?
No, we don't have any questions right now.
Perfect. Okay, so now the most importantly, that's if I'm doing it live with my students. What if I want them to work on it now at home? We did the part live and they need to continue working at home. I need to give them access to that link. So from my dashboard, I am going to click on these three dots. If I am in Google, I will click on the little hamburger in the top left corner. After that, it's the same. And I'm going to click right here on share link. Now, this is where I have two different choices. I have the choice of a teacher share link, and I have the get a student access link. So when I make an amazing lesson, I should send it to my whole grade level, hopefully, right? So they all have it. This will give them each their own link. It goes into their own library. If the teacher down the hall is like, there's no way I'm doing the experiment with glitter that you planned, she can just delete those sides and I can go on about my merry way with the glitter. However, the one we really need to focus on today is how to get that student access link, because this is really great for letting the students take their learning home. So many of our students don't have access to manipulatives, tools, and right now we're really at a time where most of them are getting access to computers, right? A lot of school districts are really investing. I know not everybody is, but a lot are. So if they have a device, can we help bridge the gap and give them instructional content that they can really interact with at home without the burden of carrying it, losing it, keeping up with it on the bus, the subway, as they have to go to work. Can we get rid of some of those barriers? So right here, I'm going to copy this link, and now I can put that. I will actually put it in the chat. Oh, I think I lost my chat too. Is it going to let me have my chat back? I was going to put it, here we go. I'll put it in the chat so you can see what your students would get if they were to click on that student link. If they click on that student link, it will ask for, I sent that to just one person. I need to send that to everyone. Richard's probably like, why did you send me that? Here we go. And now you can see if you click on it, your students will be asked, can you please sign in? They'll sign in with Microsoft or Google, and they can access all of that content. All right, I know I showed you a ton of different examples today. I do want to point out one more thing. When we talk about building relationships, we do have what's called the Smart Exchange. If you go to content.smarttech.com, and it will be in our follow-up resources. But we have been working closely with AVID, and I don't know if any of your schools are AVID, and one of our professional development specialist has a really strong background in AVID, and a lot of our team has a lot of expertise in it. And she's really worked to create a ton of resources that are directly focused on building relational capacity in your classroom and building a culture in your classroom. And these are all ready-made lessons. So I'm going to share this link in the chat as well, because even if you're not an AVID school, good teaching and good relationships, it translates across all. And so I think that this is a really great resource. And so I've kind of filtered it out so that you can just see those resources. And so I will put that in the chat as well. So that is the main meat of what I have, but I am here to answer a few more questions. We have a few more minutes, and Akia has some goodies for everybody.
Right, I have a giveaway. So I do want to say thank you, Kim, for that awesome presentation. And I want to congratulate our participant today who has won our prize, and I'm building up to it. Our winner today is Elizabeth. So Elizabeth G, you've won $25 to the new Smart eStore. The eStore link is in the chat, and we'll be contacting you by email. We have classroom care kits, monster masks coming. All those things are available in the store. So I'll paste the link to that. And I also want to say, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And we hope that you had some fun and you're feeling like a blended learning rock star right now. As we're closing out, I just, again, want to let you know, check the link in your email. If you have another Zoom, if you're joining us for one more track, get ready for that next session. But we'll stay here for a second to see if there's any last minute questions for Kim.
Somebody did ask, Jessica asked if students can access the collaborative activities. Yes, they can. So as long as they sign in, if you could get that student link, they can go in and get to those collaborative ones and work. And it does track who did what. So you can see who contributed each work.
Another last minute question that came up was, can I share this with multiple classes? So the same way that Kim was able to get that student share link, there's also options there where you can make a copy if you prefer to make a copy. If you're meeting with students live, when your students put in your class code and that time that you're meeting with them is over, you can kick out all the students and just reset the activity. So you have a lot of different options of ways you could use it with multiple groups. Hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, it's really sometimes nice to make several copies if you have different periods coming in so that the work stays together. It makes it much easier to manage. And so for those of you who teach multiple or want to use, just different elements to differentiate for each class, it's a great way to do it. But if you use one and you have them connect together in your collaborative workspace, you can have groups of students working across class, which is a really great way to do it as well. All right. Well, we're going to linger around here for about 2 more minutes. So if anybody has a question, you can take off your mic. If not, I hope you have a fabulous day. I hope you've got some great new tools.
I see a question about zooming in. Yes, students can zoom in. I don't know if you saw the feature. If they're using a touch screen, they can pinch the zoom, but also on the bottom left-hand side, it shows where you could zoom in by percentages.
And this is one thing I do really like that Smart does well. Let me show right here. Teacher handout. Because when you zoom, it doesn't turn, it doesn't do anything weird. You don't have to have a little window up here, but I can zoom down here. I can also just like you would on an iPhone, I can use the roller on my mouse. So all the movements that you think work for that. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Kimberly, can I ask a question?
You absolutely may.
Hi, this is Victoria.
Hi, Victoria.
I have the Smart Board and have been using Smart for a couple of years, but we just moved into having it on the drive this year. And so now when I open it up through the new button, I'm not seeing my heading with the code. Where is that going to show up?
I saw the question, so I can tell you, when you open it through the Google Drive, once you open your lesson, so once you've built your lesson and you click open with Smart Learning Suite Online, when you're presenting is where you can present the code to your student. You don't really need it unless you're presenting. So once you open up a lesson, you can click on the people icon like you did before, and it'll put out the directions for the students to go to the website and put in your class code.
Great. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
Well, absolutely. So right here is where it is there. So same place. And I think if I actually click edit, it might show it just if I needed to see it, but I'm not sure my account.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's it. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and sign off. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.